Good evening. Welcome to the QCIS channel. We're on this channel, you get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And tonight, we'll talk about a topic in construction that is an acronym and it is being used particularly if you are dealing with what we call public-private partnerships. Now, I never even heard the term until I got with the city of Indianapolis. And I'm talking about a process called BOT, B-O-T. B-O-T stands for build, operate, and transfer. Now, here's basically what happens is this. You have an owner, particularly it's the government. And basically what the government is doing, they're taking their design services, their construction services, and they're going to the private sector to do the work for them. Now, you've heard of other terms like design, build, design, bid, build. Well, basically when we deal with BOT, it's almost like a private public partnership. I know in Pennsylvania, we call it a P3. I know there were a lot of bridges in Pennsylvania, and we did the same thing. We never called it BOTs, but we hired different consulting firms to do the design, and we also hired consultants to do the construction inspection. And what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to present a PowerPoint presentation. Again, this is information you could use. And of course, and this is from Barnes and Thornburg. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to present different consulting companies' information up here. It's probably going to give the consulting companies a little bit of marketability when they have something good. And I'll search it out for them. And I'm also going to get into some good African American consultant companies too. But this one again, and this is actually an Indiana consulting firm, Barnes and Thornburg. And in this PowerPoint, we're going to deal with build, operate, and transfer, known as BOT, and of course, other construction options. Now, available methods of construction, again, I just mentioned them before. We have design, build, design, bid, build, construction manager as constructor, which would be the prime contractor. And then we have what we call BOT, build, operate, and transfer. And these are all under the Indiana codes. Now, under the design, bid, build method, here are the highlights. Basically, the governmental party or entity must hire an architect or engineer to prepare detailed plans and specifications. Now, the governmental entity may not have plans and specifications that unduly limit competition, which may make it difficult to pre-qualify bidders. Now, the governmental agency may also hire a construction manager and owner's representative of the works or the architect engineer to supervise the construction. Also, the governmental entity publicly bids the construction project and awards the construction contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. A minimum 15-day response period is required, but may be longer. Payment and performance bonds and retainage are required. So basically the timeline from the beginning of design to award of the construction contract for contractors can be small from $1 million to $10 million for a project is normally 4 to 7 months. And here are the positives. The method has been used often by local and state governmental entities, and it has a long history. Now, the public Bidding ensures the governmental entity is getting the lowest bid by the bidding market on the day bids are received. Now, the architect, engineer, construction manager, or owner's representative of the works provides the governmental entity an objective third party to review the work being performed by the contractor. Also, the governmental entity gets the benefit of any unused contingency. Now, here are the negatives. Now, we're on design, bid, build right now. Now, for the negatives, the governmental entity may not be able to avoid using a problem contractor if the contractor submits the lowest responsive bid. The governmental entity will incur the design fees earlier. Change orders are often common. And if there is a defect in a project, everyone is blaming everyone else for the defect. So there's no measurable way to incentivize good performance or punish any bad performances. Now, here is the design build method. Now, the governmental entity must hire an architect or engineer to prepare and issue a combined request for qualifications. That's known as an RFQ or an RFP, which is a request for proposals for projects costing $5 million or less, or a request for qualifications followed by a request for proposals for projects costing more than $5 million in accordance with a public notice. So basically, you have a minimum 30-day response period for projects costing $5 million or less, or a 15-day response period required for projects costing more than $5 million, but can be longer. Now, the governmental entity creates a committee containing a licensed architect and engineer, along with others, that scores all aspects of the responses submitted except the sealed price proposals. So basically, the government entity awards the design build contract to the respondent that provides the best value based on a respondent's score relative to its price. Then the design builder selected is responsible for both the design and the construction of the project. Now, the contract can be either a guaranteed maximum price contract or a cost plus percentage contract. Also, the contract may identify a contingency and how that is shared by the parties. Also, with this method, change orders permitted in only limited situations or if there is a change in scope. Also, payment and performance bonds are required in the amount of the contract minus design service fees. There is no retainage required. Now, what I mean by retainage, basically, when we deal with construction contracts, the contractor may want to get paid for mobilization, the office. So they front load a lot of those activities so they can get paid right away, even when little work has taken place. Now, basically, when we have retainage, it's 10%. And in order for the contract to get that 10%, they must turn in the as-builts. That means you have plans based on what the site was like or what it looked like before construction took place. And then if there's some additional infrastructure added, you would see it on the as-built plans. Now, again, with the design build method, change orders permitted in only limited situations or if there is a change in scope. We also have payment and performance bonds that are required in the amount of the contract minus design fees. Again, no retainage required. The government entity may hire an owner's representative, clerk of the works to monitor the performance of the design builder. The timeline from the creation of the combined request for qualifications, request for proposals, to approval of the design build contract for 1 million to 5 million project is normally 3 to 5 months. The timeline from the creation of the request for qualifications to approval of the design build contract for a 5 million to 10 million dollar project is normally 5 to 7 months. Now, the positive, there's a scoring process which involves an engineer and an architect, and it provides for transparency and allows for a best value award instead of a low bid award. Limitations may be imposed on who may be acceptable respondents. Upfront, but not overall, professional costs incurred by the government entity are significantly less, usually few or no change orders. Now, what's good about the design build method up here is this little piece of information up here. See, most contracts that are awarded are the lowest bidders. But here, the scoring process, and it does involve an engineer and an architect, we have a lot of transparency. And it's good because it will allow for the best value instead of a low bid award. Because sometimes low bidders might not be good contractors or good consultants, and they will undercut their competition and they will do a poor job. Some of them may not even be qualified to do the work, although they might say they're qualified. But when you look at their performance, no, they're not doing a good job. Because remember, contractors are also evaluated by, of course, if you're the inspector in charge of that job, or even if you are the consultant company who's the prime consultant company, you're also being evaluated by the owner. And generally, the owner is the government entity. Now, the incentives and penalties can be included in the contract. Again, the incentives and penalties can be included in the contract. So if there is a defect in the project, which certain exceptions for latent defects, such as soil defects, then the design builder is solely responsible for correcting the problem at its cost. Now, the negative with the design build method is the timeline for the process and the preparation to be done by the respondents may reduce the pool of respondents depending on the size of the project. Some or much of the control of the governmental entity over the design of the project may be lost, and the governmental entity may lose all or a portion the benefit of a project coming in under budget. Also unclear whether there are really cost savings. And the timeline for the selection of the design builder is very similar to the design bid build method. Now, when we deal with the construction manager as the construction method, well, the governmental entity must hire an architect or engineer to prepare detailed plans and specifications like it would for the design bid build method. The governmental entity hires the construction manager using a request for proposals process pursuant to a public notice. A minimum 15-day response period is required, but may be longer. And also the construction manager is selected by an evaluation committee subject to governing body approval. And here are the highlights of the construction manager as construction method. Unlike the design build method, there is no specific requirement requiring or regarding the composition of the evaluation committee. Again, unlike the design build method, There is no specific requirement regarding the composition of the evaluation committee. So basically, after the construction manager is selected, the public bidding of the construction contracts occurs by the construction manager. And the construction contracts are awarded by the construction manager to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for each trade. And a construction manager, not the governmental entity, enters into the contracts with the contractors. Also, the potential bidders may be pre-qualified if the pre-qualifications are in writing and approved and published by the governmental entity. There's also a guaranteed maximum price, and it may be used, but it's not required. Of course, you have payment and performance bonds that are required in the amount of the construction manager's contract. There's no retainage required, and a governmental entity may also hire an owner's representative, clerk of the works, or an architect or engineer to supervise the construction on behalf of the owner. Also, the construction manager may perform construction work on the project if it is approved by the governmental entity and the work equals less than 20% of the total value of the project, and the construction manager can provide evidence that the governmental entity that it is charging less for the work than the lowest responsive and responsible bidder for such work. Also, the timeline from the beginning of the design to award of the construction contracts for a $1 million to $10 million project is normally 4 to 7 months. And of course, the positives, the governmental entity maintains control of the design of the project. The public bidding of the construction contracts ensures the governmental entity is getting the lowest bid by the bidding market on the day bids are received. However, this is only an economical benefit to the governmental entity in a cost plus contract. Also, the governmental entity may pre-qualify and limit the bidders for the construction work. Also, the architect, engineer, or owner's representative, clerk of the works provides the governmental entity an objective third party to review the work being performed by the contractor. Governmental entity may get the benefit of any unused contingency. Also, penalties and incentives may be included in the contract with the construction manager and the contractors. Now, with every positive of a method, there's a negative. So here's a negative of the construction manager as constructor method. Well, the governmental entity will incur the design fees earlier. The governmental entity may experience change orders related to design issues. So if there's a defect in the project, again, everyone is blaming everyone for the defect. So the governmental entity may lose all or a portion of the benefit of a project coming in under budget if the contract is a guaranteed maximum price contract. And also, the timeline for the project is very similar to the design bid build method. Now, here's the method that I heard about for the first time working for the city of Indianapolis. And this is when we get into what we call the BOT method. BOT stands for build, operate, and transfer. Now, here's how it works. You have a governmental body, and they may enter into a BOT agreement for any public facility for use by the governmental body. So basically, the bot agreement must identify which cost for which developer is responsible and cost for which governmental body is responsible as well. And upon completion, the developer or offerer must operate the facility for some period of time before transferring it back to the governmental entity. Basically, 30 days is common. It could be a much longer term. So here's what we have here. A bot agreement may provide for the transfer of the public facility to the governmental body by means of a lease or an installment purchase contract. So you have the lease payments or installment payments may be made from any source legally available to the governmental body for such purpose. Now, here again, I'm dealing with Indiana right now. So here are the highlights of the process. Now, the governmental entity adopts the provisions of the bot statute, IC 523. So we're dealing with Indiana here. So here's what happens. The governmental entity may issue a request for information, which is an RFI, to gain information. One, on factors involved in the feasibility of or potential consequences of a proposed project. Two, to assist in preparing a RFP, which is a request for proposals. Or three, to evaluate any aspect of an existing bot agreement or associated facility. Of course, responses to RFI confidential, is very confidential, unless waived by the respondent. No action required to be taken after receiving responses to the RFI. And an RFI is not required as part of the bot method, but it may be helpful. Now, the highlights of the bot method. Well, the governmental entity must solicit proposals through an RFP, which must include factors, criteria to be used in evaluating proposals, a statement concerning relative importance of price and other factors, a statement concerning whether proposals must be accompanied by a certified check or other evidence of financial responsibility. You also have the statement concerning whether discussions may be conducted with offerers for the purpose of clarification to assure full understanding of and responsiveness to the RFP. And notice to the RFP published 2 times, 1 week apart, the second publication at least 7 days before proposals are due. Also, once proposals are received, discussions may be conducted with offerers for the purpose of clarification if provided in the RFP. Also, the governmental entity can form an evaluation committee. So basically, there are no requirements regarding the composition of a committee. Also, eligible offerers must be accorded fair and equal treatment with respect to any opportunity for discussion and revisions of proposals. Also, the government body must negotiate the best and final offers of possible, of responsible offers. Again, hit on this topic again. The governmental body must negotiate the best and final offers of responsible offerers who submit proposals that are determined to be reasonably susceptible of being selected for a bot agreement. And after best and final offers have been negotiated, the governmental body shall either make a recommendation to the board to award the bot agreement to an offerer or terminate the RFP process. Now, once the preferred offer is selected, what must be published, and the notice is going to be of a public hearing. So again, the selection is made. There's going to be a published notice of a public hearing 10 days in advance. Hold a public hearing on the preferred offer and award bond agreements to the preferred offer. Now, if term of bond agreement is greater than 5 years, it must also be approved by the fiscal body of the political subdivision. Now, the bond agreement must provide a payment bond in an amount not less than 100% of the cost to design and construct the facility. The bond agreement must provide for a performance bond in an amount not less than 50% of the cost to design and construct the facility. And again, there's no retainage required. And the governmental entity may hire an owner's representative or clerk of the works to monitor performance by the selected developer. The primary positives of the bond method are the governmental body has the ability to negotiate best and final offers with potential firms, and it maintains control of selecting its preferred proposal. Now, best and final offers. It did not say the lowest bid like you would have in design bid build and design build. It said the best and final offers. Just remember that. Like I said, the bot method is pretty new to me, but over in Europe, when they bid projects, doesn't always go to the lowest bidder. And here with the bot method, it's the same thing. Why? Because the governmental body holds a single contract with a developer team. And through the RFP process, limitations may be imposed on who may be an acceptable respondent. So basically, the upfront but not overall professional cost incurred by the governmental entity may be significantly less. Again, the upfront but not overall professional cost incurred by the governmental entity may be significantly less. And also penalties and incentives may be included in the bot agreement. Now, if there's a defect in the project, the selected developer is solely responsible for correcting the problem at its cost. So generally, it requires less involvement in a project by the governmental entity compared to the traditional design bid build method. Now, here are the negatives for the bot method. Well, the timeline for the process and the preparation to be done by the respondents may reduce the pool of respondents depending on the size of the project and the time allowed for the responses. Some or much of the control of the governmental entity over the design of the project, it may be lost. Now, the governmental entity may not be able to provide satisfactory objective information regarding why one qualified offer was selected over the other proposals. And of course, no public bidding is required, so it is unclear whether there are really cost savings from the delivery method. Also, the governmental entity may lose all or portion of the benefit of a project coming in under budget if the contract is a guaranteed maximum price contract. So basically, if the developer team is providing the financing, here's what's going to happen. The embedded interest rate may be at a taxable borrowing rate rather than much lower tax exempt interest rate at which the governmental entity can borrow. A developer financing usually has a 5 to 10-year term with a balloon payment due at maturity, which will need to be refinanced, and it creates an interest rate risk. Also, under this method, need to follow statutory procedures for incurrence of debt. and it might be subjected to petition, remonstrance, or referendum process. And of course, potential hidden costs in the form of developer fees, developer counsel fees, spread or markup on actual interest rate received from the developer's lender. And there you have it. This one actually compared to design build, the design bid build, bot, the construction method, the construction manager method. Basically, what I'm seeing here now is the owner is basically the governmental entity. And, you know, in my humble opinion, when it comes to government, they do hire a lot of outside firms to do the work for them. Now, I can see why they do it, so they won't have to pay pensions, or the taxpayers pay the pensions of government employees. Also, you have less of a risk when it comes to design, so you can basically hang all the design on the consultants. And basically, the government, they oversee everything. Now, again, I look at the situation, and if it's managed properly, everything can go smoothly. But when it comes to construction, there are always going to be problems, even on the administrative side. So I would say this. Is everybody using the bot method? I don't know. But I know what the city of Indianapolis, they use it. I know there are individuals out there using the JOC method. There are a lot of methods out there that are basically handing over responsibilities to third parties. Now, there are advantages and there are disadvantages. When it comes to construction, you want a good product, but also you want to make sure that it's going to be cost effective and you want to get it done under budget. And the main thing when you deal with construction, whether it is design, build, construction manager as the constructor, or even bot, look at your plans and specifications. You have special provisions. You're going to have permits, and I'm going to do other videos on types of permits as well, like your 404, your 105 permits, your notice of termination permits for sediment and erosion control. Well, your due diligence. Basically, you have to keep track of your labor, your materials, and of course, you have to keep track of your paperwork, particularly when it comes to government. And basically, that's what the government agencies who are awarding the projects do. They actually have their own personnel in place, and they may also have some consultants in place to help. But basically, I just wanted to give you all an overview of what the bot process is, but also included in this video, you heard design, build, design, bid, build, construction manager as constructor as well, and of course the bot method, and everything was for the city of Indiana. Now, again, I want to share it. The name of this firm right here is Barnes and Thornburg, and here's the information. It's an Indiana firm, and if you want to learn more about bots and what they do, Here's the information right here. It's free. And I'll be giving out information for more of these consulting firms. But that is the information on build, operate, and transfer. And thank you for viewing this content. And of course, if you like what I presented tonight on bots, not computer bots, but build, operate, transfer, dealing with construction projects for the government, just like, share, and subscribe to the QCIS channel. Now, if you're looking for the social content, the news, and the political content, check out my main channel, 411 Talk Zone radio show. So here is where you can find me for the 411 Talk Zone radio show on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, True Social, and Rumble. And for the QCIS channel, right here on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and LinkedIn. And once again, thank you for viewing this content from the QCIS channel. We're on this channel. You get a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. Until next time, my name is Leon Jones. You all to have a wonderful and gracious evening.